After 47 years, the heartbreaking mystery of Cheryl Thompson's disappearance was finally solved, revealing a tragic tale of violence and injustice. The tragic and unsolved murder of Cheryl Thompson, a young and promising Canadian journalist, captured the nation's attention for over 3 decades until a breakthrough in forensic technology finally brought her killer to justice. With a promising career ahead of her, Cheryl's life was cut short in a heinous act of violence that left her family and friends devastated and seeking answers for years. The story of Cheryl Thompson is a heartbreaking tale of a promising young woman whose life was cut short by a brutal and senseless crime, only to be forgotten for decades until a relentless investigator finally brought her killer to justice. From a small town in Ohio to the streets of Los Angeles, this cold case captivates audiences with its twists and turns, as well as the dedication of those who refuse to let Cheryl's memory fade away. Through their tireless efforts, justice was ultimately served, but not before uncovering a tragic tale of love, jealousy, and betrayal that will leave you reeling. This case's story will leave you in shock. Cheryl was living a carefree life without worrying. She was a student of nursing at the University of Cincinnati with a big dream ahead. Everything was going smoothly until in spring of 1978. What has happened during this season? Well, one day Shirley made plans to meet him in disco. When it was getting late, her boyfriend started to panic and had no trace of her. He saw that her car was parked nearby, but there was no sign of her. He immediately went to her parents' house. After a search for her, and no luck finding, the most devastating thing that occurred was that her car got stolen. The next day a complaint was made, and the police started to search. The shocking part is that, after a deep search, the police could trace Shirley. Unfortunately, Shirley was not found alive. This time, she was lying about 20 feet away from the river. She got bruises all over her neck. Furthermore, in Shirley's body, there were no signs of stabbing or gunshot wounds. Has her body drowned? How did she reach that circumstance? Instantly, the officers secured the area. You all will be amazed by knowing that her body was identified through dental charts. Moreover, the results of the autopsy revealed that she had been raped, strangled, and got severely hit on her head. Since there was a lack of suspects and evidence, the detective had no leads and the case soon went cold. This case remained silent for years and years. In the years that followed, there were numerous leads and suspects, but none of them panned out. The case went cold, and Cheryl's family was left with more questions than answers. They wondered what happened to their daughter, sister, and friend, and they couldn't understand why no one had been able to solve the case. For decades, Cheryl's disappearance remained a mystery, and her family was left wondering what happened to their beloved daughter and sister. But the happy times come around. In 2019, the case was finally solved, bringing some closure to the family, but also revealing a tragic and gruesome story. A new detective, Sergeant Kevin Crawford, took over the case. Sergeant Crawford was determined to solve the case and used modern forensic technology to re-examine the evidence. He re-interviewed witnesses and conducted a thorough review of the case file. Sergeant Crawford's efforts paid off when he discovered a piece of evidence that had been overlooked in the initial investigation. The evidence was a small bloodstain found on the carpet in Cheryl's apartment. Sergeant Crawford submitted the bloodstain for DNA analysis, and the results were a match with a completely unknown person named Ralph Orwell DNA. Are you shocked like I am now? The more shocking part is that Howell picked a woman up on the side of the road and offered to drive her home, then put a rope around her neck and began to strangle her, prosecutors said. She was able to escape. Court records indicate that Howell pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of unlawful restraint, a misdemeanor, WKRC-TV reported. Family members of Howell who submitted DNA samples were excluded as suspects in Thompson's murder, but the tests indicated that the suspect was a close family relative. Ralph Howell's body was exhumed, and a DNA sample taken from his jaw proved to be a match to the DNA found on Thompson's body, prosecutors said. Furthermore, Police said Howell is suspected in the deaths of 3 other women killed in Hamilton and Butler counties between 1976 and 1978 that display similar circumstances. Police said Howell was employed as a delivery driver for the Cincinnati Enquirer and was an over-the-road truck driver, and his possible victims are not necessarily limited to this geographic region. How shocking. The case of Cheryl Thompson is a stark reminder of the importance of DNA technology in solving cold cases and bringing closure to families who have been waiting for answers for decades. Finally, everyone can understand how and who has taken her life away. Thank you for staying till the end. Comment below. Stay tuned.